All right, seventh grade. We're looking at challenge 11 here. That's a lot of challenges. There's really only one challenge remaining after this, and that's your fully operational sumo bot. So you guys are in the driver's seat here at finishing this semester, this quarter, excuse me, in style. So let's take a look at what we've got to do and get ourselves right to work. The basic notion is that you're going to use the touch sensor, right? So you've programmed using the IR sensor, you've programmed using the color sensor, you've programmed using both of those two sensors in conjunction with one another. So there's a lot of things you've already done to program, but we haven't at all used the touch sensor. So that's really what you're going to look to do in this lesson. So again, what we're looking at is some basic requirements. Like the Roomba program, your robot should navigate freely, so it should just wander about until when the robot runs into something, it should do something else, right? So that's really what we're looking for you to be able to do. Make your robot do something different based on that touch sensor. Writing this program as a loop makes it so you can demonstrate the touch sensor operation repeatedly. And that makes a lot of sense. How many times have you been in class and you're like, oh, my program's doing exactly what I want it to do, and Mr. Emerson's not looking. Oh, Mr. Emerson. So if you write this program as a loop, you don't have that worry. You'll be able to make it do whatever it needs to do, and then whenever Mr. Emerson looks, he'll be able to check you off on this requirement. So again, makes a lot of sense. So let's take a look at that. All right, so those are the basic requirements. Not a lot to look at, not a lot to worry about here. But if we open up our programming interface, we should be able to get this done pretty quickly. So I'm going to give myself a new program and wait for that to open up. And I'm going to get rid of that. And here we are. So the first thing I'm going to do again is that last requirement. Take care of that last notion, which was writing this as a loop helps, right? So I'm going to put an infinite loop here. I'm just going to pop that in place. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a switch in, right? Or an if then else statement, right? This is what I like to call them if then else statement. That's really what it is, right? It's a programming block that allows me to check to see if something's true. And if it's true, do something. If it's not true, do something else. And right now we can see that it comes in set up on the touch sensor. So if we look, it's on touch sensor, it's on compare state, right? Which means it's either pressed or it's not pressed. If we look here, we can see that this 0 is released. That's not what we want. 1 is pressed and 2 is bumped, right? So really what we want is pressed. When it's pressed, we want something to happen, right? So when that sensor gets pressed, what do we want to happen? Well, let's start instead with what happens if it's not pressed, right? And happens if it's not pressed is we want our robot just to run freely around the room, right? So if we bring in a move tank block in the X mark block, right? So this is something it's not happening. The touch sensor is not depressed. What do we want to happen? Well, we want this robot just to run, really. So I'm not even going to mess with rotations or anything else like that. It does two things. Number one, it makes my robot move more smoothly. Number two, it makes it so that as soon as that robot bumps into something, as soon as that touch sensor is depressed, I can immediately exit out of that and do the other thing that I need my robot to do. So now I'm just driving. Right? Once I'm driving, now I got to keep checking that sensor, and this loop will make sure that sensor keeps being checked over and over again. So now what do I want to do if my sensor is bumped? What happens if I do run into something? Well, in my mind at least, the obvious thing to do when I bump into something is to back up, right? So I'll do a -1 rotation here of my move tank. Then I'm also going to turn because I don't want to just back up and then smash right back into the same thing. So I'm going to turn, and I'll turn for 90 degrees. You can turn for whatever you want. You know what? Feeling crazy? Let's make it 100 degrees just for fun today. Once I've turned, so I'm backed up and I've turned, the next thing I'm going to want to do is say something because that makes me giggle every time. So one of the things that I like to say when I've bumped into something is excuse me, but I don't think excuse me is in this menu, but sorry is. That's almost as good. Oh my goodness, I just heard the noise. It's almost as good as excuse me if you've bumped into someone. All right, so this program should look a little familiar, and it may look a little familiar, but again, we're set up on the touch sensor rather than on the IR sensor or the color sensor. So we're ready to test this out and see how it works. Again, didn't really need to know measurements, didn't need to know any of that kind of thing. just looking at what do I want my robot to do. If it bumps into something, I want it to back up and turn. If it doesn't, I just want it to go. Just drive forward and make things happen. You obviously could do a lot of different things here in terms of what you want your robot to do when it bumps into something, right? So there's other options you could have, right? Let's just drag out what we've got in there and show you some other possibilities. Maybe I want to put a loop in there and make it so that when I bump into something, I'm gonna 3 times. Well, I said three and wrote 6. 3 times I'm gonna spin in a circle, right? So I probably still need to back up. So let me back up here first, and then I'm gonna turn 100 degrees 3 times. That should spin me around a lot. And now, again, it's backed up, but now I'm spinning crazily because I bumped into something. You've got lots of options, kids. Again, what you need to do is make this program your own. Again, think about what do I want to happen when I bump into something? How do I want that touch sensor to work? And then how do I make that function within my program? So as long as you've got those things in mind, you should be in a good place. And I'm excited to see where you go with this program so that we can see where you're going next.